In this video, I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the medical school program in Nigeria. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today in this medical school breakdown, we are going to be talking about what every year of medical school entails for you, what you're expected to do for every professional exam that you are going to write. I'm going to be talking about this based on how things are done in my school, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. There are various ways that things are done in various universities. It's quite different, not that different, but the core of it is the same, but there are quite some variations in schools. Just have it in mind that whatever I'm talking about is how it is done in University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Let's talk about your first year in the university. I like to think of this as advanced secondary schools because it's just basically the same things that you did in secondary school that you're doing, your chemistry, your physics, your biology, and your general studies courses, which is like English, use of library, and social studies or something. I can't really remember anymore, but those are like the things you're going to be doing. And at the end of that, you just take examinations. We're usually written computer-based tests, and I think they're still doing that now. It's just basically go to classes, do your practicals, and then at the end of the semester, you write end of semester exam. And then after your first year, then you're going to move to your preclinicals class, which holds at UNN Enugu campus, which is in the heart of Enugu town. But your first year is going to be done at UNN campus in Nsukka town. Moving to your second year and your third year, they are done together because at the end of it, you're going to write your first professional exam as a medical student. This is when things start to get tough. In your preclinical classes, which runs for 18 months, you are going to do anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. Let me explain. Anatomy is when they teach you about the structures of the body, where it is found, how you're going to locate it, basically just prepping you for surgery. Then for physiology is basically telling you about how things work in the body and how all these bodily functions come to be about. Then biochemistry is just talking about the chemical reactions that produce these functions that your body has. Those are like the main things that you need to know in medicine for you to have a foundation to build on for every other thing. For the duration of these 18 months, you're going to be having classes, practicals. This is when you get to meet the cadaver and then cut them up, trying to find the structures in the body and all of that good stuff. I did not enjoy the cadaver room, to be honest, but hey, what can we do? Had to get through it. And at the end of the 18 months, you're going to write your first professional examination, which you need just 50% of the marks to pass. I bet you think, oh, just 50%. What's there? A lot. A lot is there. You're going to have your tests before the main examination. You're going to have tests in between the teaching and the classes and practicals and all of that. You're going to have tests which will comprise of the 30 marks for your continuous assessment. Then for your main exam, it comprises of 70 marks which you're going to get from writing written exams such as theory and MCQs. Then you're going to do alternative to practical, and then your viva, which is basically an oral exam where you sit down and talk to an examiner and they ask you questions and you answer. That's basically it. A lot of people say that this professional examination is the hardest, like is once you get through this, you've gotten through medical school. I beg to differ. I do not believe that, because it was not the hardest for me. I don't know. What do you think in the comment section below? Just let me know, because if you have passed through this stage or you are already done with medical school and you know what I'm talking about, please let me know what was your worst professional exam in medical school, because second MD wasn't mine, and a lot of people tend to say that, and I don't think so. Well, later I will let you guys know which one was my worst professional examination. When you have your 50%, you pass. When you have below 50%, you failed an professional examination and you have to resit it. When you resit this examination and you still do not get up to 50, that is when you have to repeat the entire 18 months that you learn it better. Now that you're done with preclinicals, you are now in the clinical class, and This is when you do your pathology and pharmacology, which is basically telling you about diseases and the drugs that you can use to treat them. This year runs for 9 months before you now write your next professional examination. You see, time is quite short. And another thing you will see about this program is that the workload is a lot. Let me break it down. For pathology, you have 4 courses in one. You have your hematology, which talks about diseases of the blood. You have your microbiology, which talks about the microbes that cause diseases and how they go about causing these diseases. You have your morbid anatomy, which talks about your pathology, pathogenesis, pathophysiology of diseases. Then you have your chemical pathology, which talks about the chemical aspects of these diseases. When you combine these 4 courses in one, and then you have to learn all these things in 9 months, plus your pharmacology, which is basically a whole lot of drugs, and you have to like know their names and have a lot of cramming to do, you would see that it is a lot. And this coming to talking about my worst professional exam, this was it, because I hate I hate sleep deprivation with my whole life. I do not work well with it, and this was the time I was deprived of sleep a whole lot, because there was a lot to read, there was a lot to cover, and then when you realize that, because how we usually do it is that in one day you write 4 exams. Like for the pathology, it's 4 in 1. When you have a pathology test, you are going to write 4 of them in one sitting. It was crazy, and we had a lot of practicals and all of that stuff. It was a lot. It was a lot. But let me just go back to what you're going to expect from this. You have your classes, you have your practicals, and that's basically it for pathology and pharmacology. But for in UNN, this is when you also start your clinical rotations. You also have classes on medicine and surgery, and then you go on to the clinics and the wards to have your first medicine and surgery rotations, where you basically learn history taking, because we are just fresh, we are just like learning just a few things about this disease, and we don't really have much knowledge to like go deep. What we basically learn here is your history taking. At the end of these 9 months, you are going to write your second professional examination as a medical student, which comprises of your written exams, theory and MCQ, your alternative to practicals, and your viva, which, as said before, basically means you sit down, it's a lecturer in front of you, and they ask you questions and you answer. Just like I said before, 50% is the pass mark. When you have 50%, you've passed. If you do not have 50%, you have failed. But the problem about this one is that you have to have up to 50% for each and every course that you are doing. In pathology, where you have 4 courses in one, they don't want you to get 50% overall in pathology. They need you to get 50% in each of those composite courses, those courses that makes it up. You have to have 50% in each and every one of them. If you do not have 50% in any one of them, you have to resit that one. That's how it goes in UNN. I don't know about how it goes in other schools. That's basically it for this part of your clinical classes. Now you are done with the first part of your clinicals, you are coming to the other part, which is your 5th year. This is another time I quite enjoyed, because it was a stretch of 18 months where you learn a whole lot. Basically, the main thing you're supposed to learn in these 18 months is your obstetrics and gynecology and your pediatrics. But other things you also get to learn is medicine and surgery, and also community medicine, which is basically like public health. Let's go into obstetrics and pediatrics. Obstetrics and gynecology, you're going to have your classes, you're going to do your clinical rotations, and you're going to have your rotations where you go for delivery, like going to labor to help deliver a child for a pregnant woman. That was fun. But the sleep deprivation part of it, I did not like it, because going to the hospital and then having to stay night so you can catch a baby, that's what we call it, catching babies. So it was not really my vibe, but I quite enjoyed other parts of obstetrics and gynecology rotations. Then for pediatrics, you are going to have your classes, your clinical rotations, just so you go to the hospital, see children and see diseases that they have and how to treat them. Then other things you're learning, your medicine and surgery, you're going to have your second clinical rotations in medicine and surgery in this span of 18 months, where now you are going to learn your physical examination, how to elicit diseases, signs of diseases from a patient's body. Then another thing is your community medicine. This is just the first part. You have your classes, and then they're going to take you to some places to like understand the aspects of public health. Then at the end of this, one thing we did was short postings, which is also a subsidiary of medicine and surgery. So some of the courses in short postings were medicine, some of them were surgery, and this we had clinical rotations under these units for like two weeks each. Otolaryngology, then dermatology, radiology, all of them. We had like two weeks clinical rotations under each and every one of them, as to further prepare us for final year when we are going to major in medicine and surgery proper. At the end of these 18 months, what is expected of you is that you are going to be able to diagnose diseases in children and in women, like obstetrics and gynecology, because that's the exam you're going to be taking at the end of the 18 months. For these exams, we are going to be having multiple choice questions, your MCQs, your ketabine, your theory. You are going to do your OSCE and OSPE. Let me explain. Your OSCE is objective structured clinical examination. This is basically like having, let me just explain. It has like stations. You have stations where you have to come here. You're going to demonstrate your skill of taking history. Then the next station, you're going to come there and demonstrate your skill of examining a patient. Then the next station, you're going to demonstrate a skill of maybe eliciting a sign from a patient. It just goes on like that. For obstetrics and gynecology, this is what we did in my school. But for pediatrics, we did something called long case. This is basically they give you a patient, you have to take history from this patient, you have to examine this patient, come up with a diagnosis, and then you meet a consultant and present your findings, and then come up with a treatment plan for this patient. This, when you do these things and you satisfy your examiner, that is when you get your 50% pass mark for you to move on to the next level. The thing about this area is that we are now graded according to your clinical skills and your knowledge of the theory aspect. They are graded differently. If you do not pass your clinical skills assessment, you are not going to pass your examination. You are going to have to resit the exam, so you learn your clinical skills properly. I think I forgot to explain what OSCE means, which is, sorry, not OSCE, OSPE, which is objective structured pictorial examination. This is basically, they are going to project pictures for you of certain conditions and ask you some questions under it, and you have like 3 minutes or so to put down your answers for those questions. These are like the exam formats that you're going to see for this part of your exams in medical school. So these are quite like the clinical part of the exams. The OSCE, the OSPE, and the long case are the clinical aspects of medical school. The clinical exams you're going to do in medical school. It usually is your 50% pass mark before you can pass, and then if you fail, you receipt. If you fail it again, you have to repeat that class. We have come to the final year. We have arrived. This is the last bus stop. Well, not the last bus stop, but the last place before you get to the end of the journey. This comprises of learning about medicine, surgery, and community medicine. Here you are going to, all the things you've been learning since your first clinical postings, this is where you're going to apply all of them. When you come into your final year, they expect that, yes, now you know a lot. What is expected of you is that by your final year, you can take history from a patient, examine this patient, come up with investigations, and then treatment plan for this patient, and all of that. When you're doing your clinical rotations in medicine and surgery in your final year, this is expected of you, that you come to the clinic or the ward, you collect a patient, you are able to produce investigations you're supposed to do for this patient and treatment plan you're supposed to do for this patient. And even if you don't know these things, that's why you're there. You're there to learn. This is what you're expected to learn at this point, your investigations and your treatment plan. At this point now, you're going to also do your research project for your community medicine. So you are going to be assigned a supervisor. You're going to do your project that you're going to defend at the end, and then before you can be awarded your degree, because you have to do a research project before you can be awarded a degree in any university. For this part, you're going to have two postings: medicine internet postings. For this part, you're basically having classes and clinical rotations. So you're going to be having your medicine postings, your surgery postings, your medicine postings again, and your surgery postings, which is now making it up to 4 clinical rotations in medicine and surgery that you have done for the entirety of your stay in medical school. Then you're coming to community medicine, where you're going to go do the rural posting, where you're going to learn about primary health care and all of that in a rural community. Then after that, that now leads you to your exams. Now that you've come to the part of your exams, it's basically just like what I described earlier for obstetrics and gynecology and pediatrics. So it's divided into your theory aspect and your clinical aspect. You have your theory, which is basically your writing, and then your MCQ, multiple choice questions, and you're awarded marks for that, and that is for your knowledge as a clinician. Then for your clinical skills, that's where you now do your OSCE, your OSPE, and your long case. For my school, we did not do long case for medicine and surgery. It was only in pediatrics we did long case. We did not do long case for medicine and surgery, but in a lot of schools out there, it is a requirement that you have to do this long case presentation before, as part of your clinical exams, before you can be awarded your degree or before you can pass. That's basically it. Just like it was in the other ones I've talked about, you have to get 50% for your clinical assessment and have 50% for your theory before you can pass your exams in your final year. For your community medicine, basically you have to, for your exam in community medicine, what you're going to have to do is your theory, your MCQ, and then you have your OSPE, and that was basically the formats that we used for community medicine. There was no other extra clinical thing to do than then your research projects, which you have to defend and all of that. And okay, you have your viva too, where you sit down. Sorry, for ComMed, you have your viva too, where you sit down and you talk to a consultant. They ask you questions and you answer, and then they may ask you questions on your project research, and you have to like prove to them that you actually did this research project. I think that's basically it. At the end of this one, runs for 6 months. That's what it was supposed to run for, but for my set it ran for 9 months. Yeah, the time is quite short. There's a lot for you to like read in this time, because remember when I talked about your short postings, which you learned about in when you are doing obstetrics and gynecology too, all of them are still going to come into this final year, because this is just gathering the whole knowledge you've gotten from your first clinical exposure down to your last clinical exposure, and you're going to be tested on all of them. Basically, that is what it entails to be in medical school. My loves, that is it for the breakdown of medical school. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you learned a thing or two from this video. Please, if there's any other thing that you want me to talk about on the medical school series, because I'm about to end talking about medical school, if there's something else that you want me to talk about medical school, please let me know in the comment section below and I'll try to make a video on it. If you enjoyed this video and you watched up to this point, please give it a thumbs up. Please share, leave a comment in the comment section below and tell me how much what you enjoyed about it and what you learned from it. And also please share it to your friends that are aspiring medics or they are medics. Share it to them and make sure to subscribe. Have I said that yet? Please do subscribe and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.